Hello, thank you for joining me for another video. Today's demo is autumn leaves using masking fluid line, and I'm going to start off by showing you my little Moleskine sketchbook that has a lot of masking fluid ideas. This really cute little Moleskine sketchbook which I started in 2020, and this is part of a 30-day project, and I love creating in here because there's no fixed agenda. This first spread is really moody. They're just imaginary scenes set at night because I was really playing around with the contrast, and so the lighthouse and the moon really stands out against that background, and there's obviously lots of splatters there which I was hoping would add to that moody effect. And on this next page we are playing with a lot of verticals here. Again, it's just me just trying to have fun, trying to work out a few ideas. I want to say again how useful a tiny little Moleskine like this has been for me, because if I had an idea I could put it down, use the masking fluid and see if my idea would work out. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. Now, some of these ideas here ended up in my Skillshare class called Master Masking Fluid, and they were such a delight to put together. And also, just coming up now are these autumn leaves. It was simply an idea that I had that I thought might look quite nice. So it's a good idea to test it out. I realised those acorns weren't really going to work, so I'm not going to include them in this demo. First of all, you're going to need watercolour paper. I'm using Winsor & Newton and it's 300 GSM. My professional Winsor & Newton watercolours. You also need a bog standard pencil, an HB pencil. And today's masking fluid is by Pebeo. It's blue so that you can see me apply it. And I'm be using a dip pen to apply it onto the paper. That is the browser nib. And you'll need a couple of small brushes. This is a masking fluid remover block. It looks a bit like a rubber, but it's very special. I'll show you how it works later, or you can use a normal rubber. First thing we have to do is to draw very faintly the outline of the leaves that you want to create. You can use a variety of leaves. I've got just some basic shapes going on and also all different types just to fill up that particular space. I'm trying to make sure that a lot of the negative space has been filled up using leaves. And once you have the pencil line, we're going to start applying the masking fluid. And if you have a bottle of masking fluid like this, just give it a little twirl, because you don't want to shake it too vigorously, because then give you air bubbles, which we don't want. So I've just dipped my nib in the masking fluid and I've applied it in a way that suggests the veins of each leaf. So you can use a brush, by the way. Don't think you have to go out and buy a dip pen. This demo was something that I gave out as a prize for students for uploading their projects into the project gallery for that particular Skillshare class. And I'm afraid the Zoom workshop went on for ages, so I decided to record a completely new tutorial just for YouTube, which is only coming in at about 10 minutes rather than 90 minutes. So I hope you still get the benefit of this. You will have to let this masking fluid dry completely, otherwise you're going to have trouble later. And the best way to make sure is to give it a little touch, and if it's still sticky then you have to leave it alone. Once it has completely dried, it's time to put on the watercolour. I'm starting off by using a bit of cadmium orange. Had a little accident there, and then I just added it in patches, so I'm not covering the whole piece of paper in yellow or orange, and I am going over the line, so I'm not exactly following, I'm not trying to fill in the leaf shapes. What we're trying to do is create patches of colour, areas of red, areas of orange, and I'm not blending it around. I'm letting the pigments mix upon the paper. I know this sounds like a really weird way to work, but trust me, it's going to look really great. Next goes on the brown, which is the burnt sienna, and that is just going to blend in with all those reds and oranges. So the colours I'm using are cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, Windsor red and burnt sienna. Now we have to let this layer dry completely. Don't hope that it has completely dried, otherwise we are going to have problems with the masking fluid again. So please be patient and let it dry. After that, we will be applying some very dark brown. I'm using Van Dyke brown straight out of a tube. And what we're doing here is finding the pencil outline of the shape. I've just added a few ridges on this leaf. I thought it's almost like negative painting. I said earlier, just let the watercolour go everywhere. Fill in the leaf exactly. And so you can see that I am now creating the real shape of the leaf using this brown paint. And when you look at this in a few seconds time, you'll have a better idea of what's really going on as I fill in the background. So even though I'm outlining this oak leaf, what I'm doing is really filling in the background in brown. I'm using a pretty big brush. I think if it was a round brush, I'm using a quill brush here. If it was a round brush, it would probably be a number 10 or a 12. So it really isn't accurate. And also you saw me just now turn the paper around. Don't try and contort your body. It's a lot easier to turn the paper around than to try and twist yourself into certain positions in order to start outlining different parts of these leaves. It gets a little bit trickier as I went towards this leaf on the right because they're just that little bit smaller. So if you want, you can change a brush and you can see that I'm going over the orangey red areas. Now you have to let it dry for a third time. Please make sure it is dry. You can see there's a spot here where I must have applied a ton of watercolour. So if I were to try and take off that masking fluid now, it'll probably touch that particular area and it would smudge, which would completely spoil the whole look of it. This is the masking fluid removal block and I love it. I hadn't used it until earlier this year, and if I show you the eraser, it does exactly the same job. However, you do have to flick off the sort of little shavings that come off it. So this is my new preferred tool to remove masking fluid, and it always comes off really smoothly for me. I would say if you are using masking fluid over very large areas, you might find it a little bit more trickier. That's why for this demo I've just decided to use line, and removing masking fluid line is so much easier than if you were trying to remove massive amounts of masking fluid. There is a tendency for the paper to tear. And now we have the final reveal. Oh, this is looking really good. I love this bit. And let's take a look at the final piece. You can see how those beautiful bright colours have contrasted wonderfully with that brown background. I think it's such an easy project and I really hope that you're going to try it. Let me know in the comments how you get on, and if you have any issues, also let me know in the comments. Bye for now. See you next time. When I started filling up this little Moleskine sketchbook with masking fluid experiments, I had loads of comments and questions asking what my secrets were, as many just couldn't get their masking fluid to behave. When using masking fluid, has your paper torn, your colours smudged, or you ruined your brushes? In this class there are 10 demos, starting with some fun warm-ups to build up your practical knowledge and patience, followed by some really fun projects covering florals, landscapes and food. This class is for everyone who's new to using this medium, unsuccessfully tried masking fluid in the past, or anyone seeking to find fun ways of incorporating it into their watercolour practice. I am so excited to share my top tips, so please join me.